Zingo TV channel 250. I am your host, Kenai Andrews, and we have a special embattled movie edition of the countdown as lead actor Stephen Dorff is here with us to discuss this amazing film. Before we start, a few friendly reminders to download the Zingo TV app and the BarnBurner app from the respective iOS and Android app stores. The apps are free, so please remember to like and rate while you are downloading. Zingo TV is also available on Google Chromecast, Roku and Roku sticks, Amazon Fire and Fire sticks, and all smart TVs from 2016 and forward. All right, so before we begin this amazing conversation here with Stephen Dorff, let's introduce our Countdown panel member here who is with us today. He is a professional trainer who trains elite, amateur, and professional athletes. He is also the host of Knockout and Club Track here on the BarnBurner Network. And he's also a boxing columnist here at MMA Crossfire, where I am the editor-in-chief. He joins us here from Toronto, Ontario, Canada. Noel Club is here with us. Thank you, Noel, for being here today.
Thank you. Appreciate it very much.
Always appreciated, sir, because we have a special embattled edition here. And let's begin here. Stephen, thank you so much for joining us here today. Where are you and how are you doing?
Thanks, man. Thanks for having me. Yeah, I'm in right now. I'm in Tennessee at this ranch that I got a couple of years ago, and then it seemed like a perfect time to come chill here during this time. So I was getting a little stir crazy in LA. So yeah, I'm sitting here in front of my fireplace in the middle of the country.
Nice.
Yeah, nice scenery, nice background there. Very, very good stuff.
Thanks, man.
And a nice segue towards the film here, because, you know, you've kind of been a survivor, you know, watching, looking up your career and seeing the stuff that you've done, you know, as a child actor, you know, making it out of the, out of that era is an accomplishment in of itself, as we've seen a lot of the pitfalls some of those actors have fallen into. But to progress into a lot of the work that you have done. And then, you know, actually, in researching you, Stephen, I have to admit, I actually accidentally logged on to fear.com. So, you know, if I disappear or get killed or somehow, you know what will happen. But all joking aside, you know, Embattled, you know, really tackles a lot of issues. And it's a movie that I think you can take your girlfriend to, you can take your buddies to. You can take just about anyone to and have a good conversation. How did this movie come about for you?
Yeah, I mean, a friend of mine actually, usually they go through my agents, but this movie came through a friend of mine, Colleen Camp, who's an actress and a producer and kind of a little legend in her own right in Hollywood. And she just thought I would respond to this material. And it was written by David McKenna, who I had known and who wrote, you know, Blow, the Johnny Depp film, and he wrote American History X and SWAT, and he's written a lot of big Hollywood movies. And I thought, wow, what's this script set against the backdrop of MMA and the UFC? And I thought, wow, you know, when I read it, I just saw a real, so much more than just a fighting movie. It's really a look at family. It's I play Cash Boykins, who's, you know, lightweight champion of the world. He's, you know, bringing in 7-8 million pay-per-views a fight. He's pretty much, there were the obvious guys I kind of looked at in creating this guy. I mean, I focused a lot on people that I knew, like Cowboy Cerrone, guys like Conor McGregor, obviously, who, probably brought the most flash to the sport as far as a lightweight champion, and then I even went to looked at Mayweather as far as his business sense and, you know, the cash element and the flash and the bling, but then yet again, the talent. And I just kind of morphed all these dudes together to create my guy, who's from Alabama and who's literally, 46. He's coming to the end of his run, and his son is coming up in the world. His 18-year-old son is a great jiu-jitsu fighter. And judo is on point. And I keep telling him he needs a jab. And, I'm not a very good person. I'm a guy that has a lot of talent and wins in the movie, but it was a really dark look at fatherhood. Cash is pretty much stuck in, probably because of his own upbringing, and the fact that he didn't have a great childhood, he tends to be stuck in his old ways. And so it really is a strong look at a father and son, really set against the backdrop of MMA, which has become probably one of our biggest sports in the world. You know, arguably, it's kind of overshadowed boxing in a lot of ways over the years. It's just, you know, seems like there's a fight every 2 weeks, or, you know, Europe, the world, even with the corona, it's been continuing in a really smart way. So, you know, I just thought it was a great opportunity to tell this story and give fans a look at the MMA world they haven't seen in a while. You know, there was that movie Warrior years ago.
Yeah.
I feel like our movie's a lot stronger than that film. So I'm excited now that it's coming out of the gate, you know.
I agree, because you mentioned Warrior. There was Southpaw, but I think
Southpaw was boxing, right? More boxing.
Yeah, more boxing. Yeah.
There's always a lot of boxing movies, you know. There's just not a lot of MMA movies, you know. There's a new one with Halle Berry, I think, coming to Netflix later next year that she made, which sounds more like a Rousey type, you know, story, almost like a mother battling that, you know. But McKenna really dug deep into the world, into the controversy, into what a lot of the fighters are feeling, and kind of, I think, just, you know, really laid out a really realistic look at the mindset of some of these fighters, you know.
I agree, especially the fighters at the top, because, you know, we only see a certain side of those fighters at the top, and I think what In Battle does is really show the other side, and maybe perhaps as much as the other side as we can possibly see. So I really appreciated that about the film. Can you tell me who the fight choreographer was on the film, and the challenge of, you know, developing or creating the choreography to match what the director wanted?
Yeah, I mean, basically, I just finished working on True Detective for about 110 days, and so I was pretty. I knew I was going into Embattled, and I was kind of on an adrenaline rush coming out of that shoot. So I went right into training because I wanted to put on some size. So, you know, usually I'd want 2.5 months, at least 10 weeks, but I didn't have it. You know, we kind of you know, just kind of morphed into this very intense training and eating. And I basically ended up putting about 8.5 pounds of muscle weight on, and then got on the ground in Alabama and was, I met with Chris Connolly, who's an amazing, you know, coach and MMA trainer for a lot of great fighters, whether it's Eric Anders, who's in our film, you know, Walt, who just had the big fight. I think
Tyrone Woodley.
But yeah, I mean, Chris Connolly was just an amazing guy. I had gotten the experience years ago when I did a film called Felon to kind of meet Cowboy and a lot of Greg Jackson's guys out of New Mexico. So I was familiar with the sport. I was a fan of the sport. I was familiar with a lot of the guys in the sport. And I trained with some of them during Felon, but this was much more, you know, hardcore into the MMA world. Everything had to be accurate. I mean, this is, you know, I'm playing an MMA lightweight champion. I've got to, you know, so Chris kind of took me under his wing. He wanted to see what I could do, which I've done a lot of fighting in movies. And I have a pretty quick memory when it comes to choreography, but there were certain moves and certain things that I needed to learn for this guy. So, you know, with the help of Fernando, who was who really kind of created the fights with Chris, I think, and, you know, and Don, our stunt choreographer, basically, you know, we just hit the ground running. You know, once he could see how I moved, he saw what weaknesses there were. We brushed those up, and then we jumped right into learning the choreography because we only had about 10 days before we were hitting the arena, because we wanted to shoot the fights first. You know, I thought it was important to get in the ring, we'll feel the characters and get all the fights in the can, and then we could relax a little bit into telling this story, you know, which so much of the film is outside the cage. Mm-hmm. So, you know, it was intense, but, you know, I think I had a great team. I mean, Connolly and Chris, I was doing some early interviews a couple of weeks ago with Chris. He was in Abu Dhabi for those fights. And, you know, he's an amazing guy, and really, he plays our referee in some of the fights in the movie. And, you know, it was great to have Kenny Florian and Tyron Woodley and all these great, you know, Cowboy, who didn't end up making the cut, but he was great in the scene he made. It just, I think, was a timing issue. It was no offense to his acting skills. He's a badass. in any event, yeah, we had some great people, and it just, when you have the real deal kind of with you, you can always look to those guys and say, is this terrible or is this looking and feeling real? And for me, whatever world I'm in, if I'm playing a cop, if I'm playing a fighter, if I'm playing a fireman, whatever I'm playing, I want to know what that is, and I want to do it right. I want to pay allegiance to that sport, to that world. Otherwise, it just looks silly, and I don't want to be in that movie, So, and so that's the great fortune was Chris was incredible, and between Fernando and Chris, they really took me through it, and Darren did an incredible job too, coming in late in the casting. Who plays my son, Darren Mann, jumped right in. He played some hockey in Canada, where he's from, and so he was very athletic, and but he needed to learn some of this kicking and some of his moves, So he hit the ground running, and he picked it up real fast for somebody that's pretty fresh on the scene. Yeah, I mean, it takes two to tango in that. And then also we had two great photo doubles, who take some of the pressure off when it comes to a suplex move or a move that'll probably end up cracking our necks, and then there'd be no movie. So, Ross and Alex were really great, and I don't think we could have, especially that last fight, which I don't want to give away, but it's pretty much, yeah. I mean, what the great thing, to answer your question too, without sidetracking too much, they did a great job of bringing choreography into the script writing of these characters. That's kind of what you asked, and so rather than just, oh wow, let's make an incredible 5-minute cage fight, round. It's more about, who are these people? What do I do to throw Darren off his game? What does Cash do to bring him back to that little boy? But then Darren trying to fight that off and look at this as just a fight, his character, and try not to get manipulated by my experience and my games, because Cash is a scrapper. He'll come out. His main goal is get you on the floor, cut you, and take you out. He doesn't want to be in there for, the whole thing. He wants to get in and out and get to the party. I mean, that's his gig. And so very much like a Connor, let's get in there, do some business. I don't want to go the full thing and then have Khabib crush me. He's a different kind of guy that way. And so much more like how Connor came out and shook Cowboy in a way, and just changed in that fight, which I was really looking forward to that fight, because Cowboy is just such a dominant, strong, tough man. And he was waiting for that fight. And then for whatever reason, you're in that moment, you get hit with the wrong thing right in the beginning, boom. And then the shoulders are coming or whatever else is coming. And the next thing you know, he's out of his game, and this is a guy that I've watched take beatings and come back. So, it's just interesting to get to know these guys, and to really, I really admire the strength. I mean, I don't think I could get in that cage. You don't know. I mean, it's just it's a very intense choice that these guys make. So in getting to know them as people is interesting,
Well, I think it's fair to say though, with this, actually with Felon, and certainly within Battle, that it's fair to call you a mixed martial actor, because this film is not only the physical, but you hinted at the psychological. I mean, this film really goes psychologically behind, into the mind of a fighter and their situation, Cash's situation with his family, a very complicated one, as you mentioned. And I think that is, the beauty of the film is that not only about the physical, but there are a lot of situations, a lot of things to consider about this guy. And just when you think, like you said, he's the bad guy, you see something that makes you think, like you kind of get a sense of some kind of empathy for this guy.
Yeah, it's hard. It was hard to find those moments, because at the end of a movie like this, which is pretty true to form, a guy like Cash isn't probably going to ever change. He's not going to change overnight. Even if he does find a relaxation in his soul and starts, practicing Buddhism or whatever he goes through, he's probably not going to change who he is. And that's left him, without giving away too much what happens. You can have all the money in the world, but you could be left alone in the end. You can lose your family, you can lose your wife, you can lose your new family because of your actions. And so it was hard. It's hard for me to watch this movie. It was hard for me to play this guy, because I'd been playing some good characters recently in the last 2 years, where I was playing tougher dudes, but guys with souls, guys that are law enforcement, finding bad people, good morals, they're flawed or not. this is a guy that's hard to like, you know. But there was one moment, without giving away again, I'm not supposed to do that, but at the end of the movie, there is a moment where I try to show some sort of emotion in this character to where you can understand maybe where he comes from and that he does care, you know, and maybe that's what you, my friend. I mean, it's a hard one. It's kind of probably, I kept thinking, like, what did De Niro feel when he made, you know, Raging Bull back in that day? You know, like Jake LaMotta is not a real likable guy. He must not a, you know, I felt uncomfortable playing Cash every day. He's not a guy, you know, if you're doing a comedy with your buddies, or I'm making a movie with Adam Sandler or something, we're kind of light and we're having fun during the day and it doesn't get too heavy. This is a hard guy to play for 2.5 months. And I'm sure De Niro went through the same kind of, in his own way, different generation, different sport, different, but along the same lines. You know, it's sometimes the harder characters and the most unlikable of characters are sometimes the best characters to play. So it's, you know, I knew this story was important to tell and I thought it would make for a good film. So I kind of jumped in and then realized, Jesus, this is who I'm playing, you know?
Yeah. And again, you hinted earlier at American History X, William McKenna. You know, I think if we had a game of Family Feud and, you know, the top 5 answers on the board, I think American History X would be the answer to, you know, the top 5 movies that make Shawshank Redemption look like a cartoon. Because
I mean, David, I remember loving that movie. I mean, and just kind of, that was a tough movie too, and had a lot of controversy when it came out. I love Glow, Ted Demi's film that he wrote, because Ted was a friend of mine and passed away after that movie. But I always loved that movie. I thought Johnny was great in that film, and Penelope Cruz too, and just the way it was made. That was really cool. But yeah, David's a great writer, man. And he put me through the ringer when they finally gave me this role. Cause you know, when I met Nick, our director, I met Nick Suchkov, you know, the first time we had dinner after I read the script, and I wanted it, but they weren't really pulling the trigger. They were interested, but they weren't kind of, I'm sure they were playing with maybe some other names. There was talk of an older guy maybe coming in and playing Cash, a little bit older than me. But when I started doing True Detective and that was announced, they kind of said, oh, well, that's enough for us. We'll give it to them. And they gave it to me. And I was like, I can make this after the movie. I just, minimum, I need 6 to 8 weeks, though. I can't do it going from set to set. I've got to be able to eat and put some size on. And I know my frame and my size, and I know how the camera will always put a little weight on you too. So I had that going for my advantage. I just needed to build up my strength and build up my size a little bit for me to look in the mirror and go, okay, I can play this dude, you know? And so I pretty much went right from Arkansas right into LA, met my trainer, Josh Perzo, who's a great physical trainer out of Montreal, trains a lot of athletes and hockey players out of Canada. And he knows my body. He trained me for Immortals, for a bunch of kind of more Hollywood fare. And he just came out, we started hitting it. And then I was on the ground. He came with me to Alabama, stayed with me for about 3 weeks through the fights. We'd pump and work out right before shooting, you know, basically do every kind of cheat you can when you don't have the real time to do what a real fighter would be doing, you know? And so I would have liked a little more, but we got it in. And it's, you know, the fights are convincing from what I've heard from a lot of the MMA community and starting the press that I've done so far, which is exciting. That makes me feel good.
Yeah,
absolutely. Absolutely. We're here talking with Stephen Dorff, the star of Embattled, which releases November 20th to select theaters and video on demand. Over to you, Noel.
Sure. Actually, I was watching a movie, one of your movies last night, Blade. To see you here today.
Old school. Yeah. That's one I can't ever seem to forget about.
I just want to go back in time because I say I'm actually a fan of your work. What kind of inspired you to become an actor in the first place all those years ago?
You know, when I grew up, I was born in Georgia, but my dad was a young, struggling songwriter. We moved to LA when I was like 3 months old. You know, we didn't have a lot of money, living in a little apartment in the valley. And my dad wrote a big song called Every Which Way But Loose for Clint Eastwood's movie in '73. Okay. And then my dad became this big songwriter. He was writing songs for Kenny Rogers and Lionel Richie and all these guys. And so I went to these private schools, and, you know, I was, you know, 9 and 8 and 9. And as my dad did better, I was going to these fancy schools with a lot of these movie stars, kids, and, you know, there was a lot of flash around. It was a little confusing, but I remember being on a movie set, and I saw a kid my age, he's like 10. And I'm like, "Dad, how does he get to do this?" Whereas I'm like on a field trip and you took me out of school to show me, but he's just here hanging out. How's that? What's going on? And he's like, "Well, he goes to school on the set, And so I was like, "Ching!" I was like, that was exciting to me. So it's not like I read some incredible book, but I always loved movies. I loved entertainment. I loved TV shows at that time. I was definitely a fan of creativity and art.
Yeah.
And I loved Jack Nicholson, and I recognized cool things. I didn't have the biggest, knowledge of filmography and what I know now, and obviously what I started learning in my later teens into my 20s. But I definitely, that was the initial thing. And then I got an agent saw me at some play I did in my school, and then I started doing commercials, and one thing led to another. My parents kind of saw that I was serious about this and that I liked it, and that it was my thing that I was kind of good at. As a kid, even though I didn't know what I was doing, and they supported me with it. They just kept saying, "Do better in school," because I just wasn't really great at these private schools, wearing the uniform, doing everything that every kid
that's challenging.
did. I was a little different. So, and then when I was 17, I got my first movie, my first big movie, which was The Power of One. And I worked with Bill Superfoot Wallace, the kickboxer. Do you remember him? And
sure do.
And Benny the Jet. Do you remember Benny?
Oh, yeah.
All these incredible kickboxer guys that were in the Valley. And I remember auditioning and training with these guys. And I had John Avildsen at the helm, who really was, for me growing up in my generation, was kind of king of the underdogs between Rockies and the Karate Kids. And
we're in the same generation.
Yeah, his filmmaking, they even did a documentary on him. I did an interview for, and I think it was called The King of the Underdogs, because he was really this really great filmmaker when it came to those stories. And you look at like what even now the Cobra Kai and these things that are spawned from these movies that he created, and like, even though it's kind of more funny and I think kitschy now and it's gotten so big, but in any event, John really put me through the ringer. I think those guys taught me how to my first punch and to take a punch, choreography as far as boxing in those rounds. That wasn't MMA, so we weren't in a cage. It was more like during apartheid and basically fighting in townships and based on a very famous book. So that movie took me to Africa and London and for a year almost. And I had so much training from how to box and sell a punch and John and all these different angles and wides, the tights, that I felt like, wow, I feel like I've got a built-in thing now, so I can use this in my arsenal when I go into these different movies. So I think that's what Chris would tell you if you were, interviewing Connolly. What he says is that I knew I was going to be faster than most people coming in on the ground one because of that knowledge, because of the foundation, and because I'm able to, I know camera, I know, how I have to sell that punch or it's going to be a miss. I know, it's a dance, and sometimes you get popped, sometimes you don't, and I got popped on Fallon. I got popped a couple times on this. I popped a couple of the doubles, Darren's double Ross a couple times, and I felt bad. I don't like when that happens, but when you're going at this stuff, it feels real, you're just not connecting fully, but it's almost more exhausting because, for it to come inches within your face, and if the camera's here, so it has to hit here, but if I come a little too close and he moves a little too far left, we're never going to perfectly match up. So it's a dance, and me and Darren did a great job. I think Darren did a fantastic job. Our doubles were phenomenal, and they allowed me and Darren to go do a round, then break, and then I'd work Darren's double Ross. They were allowed, us to get more close-ups on me, not, let Darren rest, vice versa, let me rest a little. Let's get back in and get the angles we need to get. But yeah, I mean, that's pretty much how I started. And then I grew up doing this crazy business. So
here you are, going strong.
Just turned 47,
Oh, you too,
yeah. So
me 3.
Yeah, 3 was a 47. There you go.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, I turned 47 the end of July in the middle of this craziness. And, but I'm real excited about this movie. I kind of pick apart everything I've ever done. And I got to say, I've seen this movie now probably 7 times. And I don't like watching myself. But I did want to, I like to learn everything about a film before it gets launched into the atmosphere on whatever level. You know, in this case, we're in theaters and cities where we can play, and we're going to be at home, which is probably where all of us have been watching our content, and I'm perfectly fine with it. You know, the more eyes, the better at home. But I want people to be safe. But you know, it's a good movie, man. It's hard for me to pick it apart. I'm like, I talked to Nick, the director, and I'm like, I can't pick any performance apart. I love the way it's shot. I love the sound design. You know, he brought in incredible people, and I think made an incredible first American film for himself. So I'm really proud of it.
Yeah, exactly. Like I say, actually, I like the Jack Nicholson reference you made there, because that's how I see you myself when I watch movies over the years. I'm thinking you have that kind of Jack Nicholson kind of quality about you in your
I've
movie.
always loved Jack, and I made a movie with him when I was like 20, 25. I made Blood and Wine with him, with Jennifer Lopez and Michael Caine. It was kind of Bob Robinson dark Miami movie when Miami was kind of just on fire. It was like 96. It was just the greatest place in the world, you know. And I was with my hero, Jack, and then all these other great actors, Michael Caine and Bob Rafelson, directing me, and J-Lo. And it was, you know, ever since then, Jack's been just a great friend of mine and a great supporter of mine. And I think one of just the smartest man as an artist that I've ever met in this business. I mean, just, you know, his charisma, but yet how smart he is, just his brain. And, you know, he'll still watch my work and, you know, critique it for me. And if I get a good critique from Jack, that's better than any critic or Rotten Tomatoes score or anything. That's all I need.
What did he say about Embattled?
He hasn't seen it yet. I have him on the list for this virtual premiere, but he's probably not going to do that. He probably will be like, "What the hell is that, Dorf?" You know. But and I'll be like, "Don't ask." But anyway, no. You know, I'll tell him. I'll tell his guys that it's available, and you know, they'll put it up for him tonight, and I'm sure he'll check it out. And I hope he likes it. But he really liked True Detective.
That's a good movie.
He's a real supportive man, and I just love that dude. And I've gotten real close with his family and his friends, and over the years, and you know, I love his kids. You know, I did a short film for his daughter Lorraine Nicholson, who's really talented, and I think gonna be a big director coming up. And I did a short for her, and that came out good. We went to Tribeca with that. But yeah, I wish, you know, I can't say enough amazing things about that man. But you know, I've lost a lot of good friends too, like somebody like Dennis Hopper, who was also a.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, I love Dennis, and Dennis really vouched for me to Jack. Dennis was the one that vouched for me to Nicholson to get me. You know, when Bob wanted me to do Blood and Wine, I wasn't available to meet Jack, and usually you got to meet him to kind of get the final sale of approval. You know, if you're going to be working with him intimately in that way. And so I didn't have a chance to get to meet him, and Dennis called him and said, "This kid's good," or whatever he said. And so I still got my writer poster signed by Jack and Dennis, and it says or Jack says, "Thank Hop for the recommendation, Dorf."
Wow.
I always thought that was pretty cool. I mean, those guys are, to me, the real deal. I get depressed a little bit about the new generations and the stuff. Not that there's not talented people, there are, and there's a lot of talent coming out in music and film, but the business has changed, you know. The overall movie biz and TV, it's all one thing now. It's a much different world than when I grew up, as the world should be, I guess, because times have changed, we evolve, but it is different, you know. Award shows feel different. I grew up looking up to the Bob Evans and the Jack Nicholsons, the Warren Beatty's, and the, you know, Robin Williams when he was young, and Richard Pryor, and you know, just filmmakers, Coppola and Scorsese, and the Kubrick, and just watching these movies, and the 70s movies that I got to know later. I was in my kind of late, you know, into my early 20s that I got to master and learn. They don't make, you know, nobody's making those movies really that much anymore. You know, and usually they're not gonna, you know, because they're not the ones that are gonna make the big coin. They didn't make the big coin when they came out in the 70s, but they went on to become classics, whether it was Scarface, whether it was in more our generation, a movie like Heat, for example, Michael Mann made. Heat didn't make a lot of money when it came out, but Heat is a monster. You know, you watch that movie, you can't stop watching it, you know. And so, you know, and I got to work with a lot of my heroes just growing, you know, Michael Mann, Oliver Stone, you know, and so like for me, I take all that knowledge and I use it and learn from the next one, you know, whether it's the $100 million movie or a smaller, more intimate film like an Embattled. And to me, they're all kind of the same because they all end up in the same place. We all get this cube now, pretty much. If we're watching at home, you get your little thing, right? So, and it, you know, if they're good movies, you get it for the small ones and you get it for the big ones. You don't really get a bigger cube. It's all the, you know, same. So we're working for, you know, everybody's working for streamers. Everybody's working for, you know, not too many people are working because what we're dealing with, but,
That's right.
you know, hopefully we get a vaccine. We're going to get out of this mess and get back to normal life. And hopefully our country will be safe, you know, and
yeah, exactly. And hopefully real soon. Yeah, I totally agree with you about the statement you made, but lack of depth. I totally agree 100%. And yeah, so I'm looking forward to seeing your movie for sure. You need some depth for sure in the film industry. That's for sure.
Yeah, I hope you like it. And, yeah,
I'm sure I will with you in it. I think I will.
You live in Toronto or?
I'm in Toronto. Yeah, I'm in Toronto.
Oh, cool. Yeah, I like Toronto. I love Toronto. I have a lot of friends from there. I've worked there for many years over the years, back when they used to shoot everything there for a while.
You were at the TIFF one year, weren't you?
Huh?
You were at the film festival, the Toronto Film Festival one
Yeah,
year?
I've been there a few times with movies, and I've had movies in the competition there, and then I've done the premieres there, but I've also gone to shoot a lot of movies, and I made a lot of movies in Montreal too. Never really worked that much in Vancouver, but Montreal and Toronto, I've done probably a handful of maybe 7, 8 movies there.
They say Toronto is New York City run by the Swiss. The great Peter Ustinov said that.
Yeah, it has definitely a New York feel, you know. I think that's why I like Toronto and Montreal. Montreal has this European feel, this European kind of, you know, I love old Montreal for that. And then I like Toronto because it's kind of a really great metropolitan city with good people and good, you know, great restaurants and then great areas where you can live. And so I've gotten to know the city. And then I made movies in like Cambridge outside of Toronto. You know,
yeah, that's right. Yeah.
I made a movie called Cold Creek Manor there for like 3 months in Cambridge, which was beautiful out. I think it was the summer one year. And yeah, I haven't shot there in a while, but I love Toronto. I do like the T-Dot. They used to call it the T-Dot.
T-Dot.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Yeah, I don't know if they still do. I don't know, but they used to.
They call it the
Younger people have no idea what I say when I'm talking to somebody like my little sister who's 20. I'm like, you know, you've been to the T-Dot? She has no idea what I'm saying. Like it's slang for Toronto.
Yeah.
Very cool. Over to Kanai.
Yeah, I mean, it's fascinating to hear that. You know, it's great to see that you're a worldly person visiting a lot of different places. Let's get back to the movie for a moment because, you know, there were a lot of great performances in that movie. And I really want to touch on Elizabeth Reeser. You touched on Darren Mann, but talk about, you know, those people and the contributions they made because they were really central to the film too.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's the kind of film where a performance that doesn't work would jump out and hit you over the head because everything's kind of grooving in this intimate way. I mean, Elizabeth, who I didn't know before, and I have, you know, that one big scene with her in the kitchen, and then I have, you know, some other scenes towards the end. She's a powerhouse actress. I mean, those scenes that I wasn't around for, that are between her and Darren and the family, her family there, are, you know, she's fantastic in the movie. I mean, Donald Faison's fantastic. You don't see him in that kind of a part, and he kills it as the teacher. You know, Colin, who is David McKenna's son. I don't know if you knew that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, yes, I knew that. Yeah, it was amazing.
He really has Williams syndrome in real life.
Yeah.
He's the most incredible kid. Never acted before in his life, but I think his dad really wanted to write this for him and give him a shot. And he came in and he melts your heart. You know, without him, I don't think the movie works. I think he's a crucial element to the movie. I think his friends in those scenes are incredible. It's probably the most realistic look at a special needs child that I've seen, where it's not a movie about that, but it's not a Lifetime movie about something and hitting it over the
organic.
Head. It's just
very organic,
real thing. And he's such a great person and human being that you fall in love with him. Yeah. And I think, you know, the movie is really informative and educative that way. And who else? I mean, you know, everybody. My friend Saeed Tajamwi, who's been in like so many movies, he came in and did that part as you know, the guy that knocked me out once in my
Right.
one loss, and in Cash's career. And I mean, the acting's superb. I think I credit Nick, our director, for that, because, you know, I'm not in there directing other actors, but I feel like our supporting cast who, you know, played the Dana White and the Lorenzo or whoever those two guys are supposed to be, you know, really crushed it too, you know. I mean, and then all the real UFC guys that come in, and whether it's Kenny Florian playing kind of the Joe Rogan kind of part, the UFC announcer ringside, or whether it's, you know, Chris Connolly coming in and doing his best at all his experience watching what those referees do. Rather than casting local people, it's always great to have the real people kind of playing different roles, you know.
Absolutely.
The bummer about the cowboy Cerrone scene that's not in the film, for me is he was really funny, and it's a funny scene because it's like a role reversal. He plays an autograph guy coming up to me to get my autograph, and
How ironic is that?
Cowboy Cerrone playing kind of a nerdy guy, and I'm the actor playing kind of him, or a Connor kind of vibe, you know. So there was an ironic, cool thing in the scene, but I understand why it didn't make the cut, because at that point we're very much invested into Elizabeth's storyline, and once Carucci's great. I think she nails it, you know, and
absolutely,
really, she got pushed in a way that I don't think she's been pushed in a dramatic role. And I said I was going to go pretty hard with her, and she was down for it. You know, I worked everything with her so nobody was going to get hurt, but you know, we went there, and I love Carucci for really trusting me and trusting the movie and giving it her best. She comes off fantastic in it, you know. But sorry.
So how long did the film take in total to film? How long did it take?
I want to say, you know, for me, it was probably 3 months, but then I'm putting in a lot of my training. Probably the hardcore shooting of it all was probably 8 weeks, 2 months, I would say.
Okay.
About a week and a half. I think we did all the fights in about a week and a half, which is pretty crazy.
That's pretty crazy.
That is crazy. And it was filmed pre-COVID, obviously.
Yeah, we filmed it right after. It's been in the can for longer than a normal movie. Normal movies usually in the can. If it's a good film and it's coming out and people want to buy it, it's usually a year from when you stop to when it rolls out. This movie's been almost a year and a half to 2 years, because Nick really took his time. I think he used one editor and then wanted a certain sound designer that did Gravity, which was, this guy's incredible. So we waited 4 months for him to become available off a bigger movie, come do In Battle. You know, he'd be more the one to ask those specific questions, but I know he took his time. He's like, I'm in no hurry. You know, I'm going to get this movie right, and then we're going to come out with it. And that's, you know, God bless him, because I'm glad he took his time, because it's a really, really strong piece of art now, you know. And I don't know if it would have been if he had just put it all together, gotten what he dealt with, and then gave it. He was kind of like not going to take no for an answer with certain creative decisions. And I think that's admirable. So
no kidding, that is.
I think, I agree. I think, like you said, this was, you know, based on your experiences, like this was the perfect movie at the perfect time to really utilize all of the experiences you had pretty much built up during your career. Do you think this work in like on network TV or cable, like an In Battle series, kind of like what Kingdom was?
I don't know. It's an interesting question. You know, anything can happen. You know, I mean, if the movie exploded and just became you know, this kind of word of mouth crazy film, and everybody's downloading it at home, and you know, I'm sure they could spin something off into a TV show with this character or this world, you know. But it doesn't jump right out at me as like, oh, let's do a Cash Boykins TV show. But you know, world and like Kingdom or something within that. Yeah, I'm sure there's room on cable for. I mean, look, I'm surprised there's not more movies set in the Mexico. I mean, I can name you 15 boxing movies that have come out in the last 2 years that they almost blend into each other. And I feel like they're just biopics of another great story, but they tend to be the same story, you know. And it's like, you know, Cinderella Man, for example, is a brilliant film, I think, with Russell Crowe and Paul Giamatti. That's one of my favorite boxing movies of the last 20 years, probably. I don't know how long ago that movie was, but man, there was a beautiful story. Russell was brilliant in it. Renee Zellweger was brilliant. Paul Giamatti, Ron Howard, I love that movie. I've seen other movies like Southpaw. Liev Schreiber did one about the other boxer. Miles Teller did one about another boxer. That's what I mean, is that there's so many of these boxing stories that they almost count each other out, because they're
Right.
it's the same story. The boxer that loses their money, that goes down, that's homeless, then he comes back, has that fight, And look, you got to tell true stories about true American heroes and interesting people. I get that, but there hasn't been that much different about them.
It's all about the details.
I thought Creed did a great job. My friend did all the fight choreography in Creed, who I worked with back on Blade, a guy named Clay Barber. And I thought Creed and, Creed 2, not much, but Creed was really brilliantly made. I thought that was kind of the first one in a while. The Fighter was cool, which was
Fighter's a good
movie, more of a drama. I love the relationship there. David O. Russell's a great filmmaker. I mean, there's been some, but I think a lot have folded down the wayside because they're, and I hope that doesn't happen with MMA. I like that we're kind of fresh in a canvas that's huge, but there's not too many stories being told in it.
Yeah, correct.
Right.
And that's what I think is kind of surprising, because we always have a million horror movies. We have a million crime heist movies. We have a million true stories. We have a million animated films. Yeah. But we have a million boxing movies, but we don't have a lot of MMA movies. And MMA, I would, to me, besides football and maybe soccer overseas, seems like the biggest sport in the world.
I agree. I think there's a lot of stories that need to be told, not just the males, but the females. I'd like to see a Ronda Rousey.
I think they're doing one on Kimbo Slice. I heard they were doing a biopic on him, which I think is interesting and a cool story with the whole backyard thing and his whole, the way he came up. Chris was telling me about that, Connolly. So, and I'm sure the Hallie one from a woman's perspective, a female story with a baby, that could be interesting. It must be good because bought it for a lot of money. So, but let's, I like that the window's open, and I think we did good. So now I hope that crowd and other crowds embrace it,
Yeah, I think the stage is set, definitely. I mean, this is one of those movies that I truly believe needs to be in the theater, because an experience shared, particularly with a movie like this, it really does a lot for the movie in terms of word of mouth and the reaction and that sort of thing. It's just unfortunate that we're in the pandemic, that, you couldn't, all the theaters aren't open for it. But nonetheless, quality is quality. And whether people are watching it at home with their sweetie or wherever, if it's a good movie and it generates that reaction, you're going to get that word of mouth that you're looking for.
Yeah, that's what I've found in other films, I mean, even a movie like Felon, that movie Sony put out in in LA, New York, and whatever, 10 cities. It was some small deal, thing went nuts that was when DVDs were still big, but it went crazy. It's just everybody, and people still talk to me about that movie while we had no box office. And then movies that I didn't think were that good did really well on the box office. So I never really know. So much has to do with, I hope IFC gives us great positioning. They really believe in the movie. They've done well in this quarantine with some of their other titles. So I'm hoping that they come in with a bang this week and give us the placement we need, because, you want to start seeing some ads. You want to start getting the word out on the title, so that's what I've been hammering them on, and I think the producers, but, got a big week of press, and just keep hammering it, maybe the second week I'll do more, and we'll see where we're at.
Yeah. Absolutely. Well, you have a fear.com fan here, so that should tell you everything.
You're one of the only ones on that one.
Well, the first one is always the hardest, So.
Yeah, I actually got paid a lot for that one, but and I like Stephen Ray and Natasha McElhone. They're good actors. And actually, in a way, that movie was ahead of its time a little bit.
It really was. It really was.
I mean, it was before The Ring too. You remember The Ring? And we watched. You put the video in. This was before that. It was kind of like a serial killer on the internet. It was before its time.
Yeah.
Or something.
Just after Blair Witch, and it was just a fascinating idea, logging into a website and okay. But over to you, Noel.
Yeah, thank you, sir. So we ask you, what's your dream role for you for the future? Have you kind of dream roles you want to play or characters you want to play?
I think just good stories and just characters that I haven't yet gotten to play. I mean, I love the Western genre. I haven't really done a Western, that would be cool. been asked to be in a couple over the years, and I was doing a different movie, and the timing just, I was like, I'm just not destined to be in a Western, I guess. But, I don't know. I mean, it's great stories. I'd love to do again, find another great character for cable, kind of like my experience with True Detective, something I could visit every year or every other year and do a series of like 8 to 10 episodes. I love the cable kind of outlet is really, I think, where I belong and where I want to be. And then in between that, do movies, But I got to say, doing True Detective, I love the fact that I could play a character for 8 hours, as opposed, you could do a lot more with a character and let him live, as opposed to when you make a movie, you've got 110 minutes max to tell a story, unless you're doing The Irishman or something, which is 4 hours long. But you for the most part, you don't have much time. I have my moments for cast to hit, and that's it, and that's the performance. So in a show like True Detective, I've got 8 hours, and I've got 50 of those scenes and 50 of those moments to hit. So it's really exciting for an actor, and I can see why so many people now are playing in that arena, because it's become so popular too, and there's so much good television out there. There's almost better TV than there is movies.
Yeah, that's true.
And you still got great filmmakers working, but it's getting harder and harder. And so I'm just praying that everybody's going to get healthy. We're going to get a vaccine. We're going to kind of start to get along a little better, hopefully, this divided kind of craziness, and we'll be getting to go to the movie theater again. Because I agree with you, man. I mean, that sound design and stuff, not everybody has the money to have those home systems that you really want to hear this movie on.
Yeah.
But movie theaters do. But, I do feel that there's a good time, because there's nothing to watch. So for me, I feel like, let's hit it while we don't have the crazy competition of James Bond and of, a Pixar title. And, there's already competition because there's 9 million places to watch content. But, good movie's a good movie that pops up that you've never heard of or seen. And that's what, I'm hoping for. So.
Yeah, no, exactly. Back over the host.
All right. Well, we're almost out of time, Stephen. So I want to leave you with these 2 quick questions here, because I know you're a big basketball fan.
Yep.
And you mentioned earlier that you're you're an MMA fan. So your favorite fighter, and are the Lakers going to repeat?
I think the Lakers are on fire, So, I mean, I'm happy to see, I was happy to see the city that I'd say I'm from, and I have a love-hate relationship to, but I do love LA and I miss it. And I'm happy. I'm happy for LA. I'm happy for the Lakers, and I'm happy for the Dodgers. Really happy for the Dodgers too, because they've gotten so close so many times in the last, and they just finally made it happen. So big year for LA, even though the year was kind of a wash. But sports wise, the NBA handled it well. The bubble seemed to work. Baseball seemed to work it out for the most part, and. Nice to have some sports for people to watch, because for a while we didn't have anything, so everybody's going, but the truth is, I love basketball. I'd love to see, Toronto's a pretty damn good team too. I've been to some Raptors games over the year, I see LA doing it again, both sides. I think both those teams, Dodgers and Lakers.
Wow.
Cool. And fighter wise, man, I respect so many. I respect and love Cowboy Cerrone, just the amount of fights he's taken over the years. I think he holds the record for the most fights of a UFC fighter of
pretty close, yeah.
I think he's up there. I could be wrong, but I believe he's
definitely up there. I
think Khabib, who obviously just seemed like he retired in the thing, Chris was there in Abu Dhabi. I think he's just. He seems to me like the best fighter of all time. I don't know. To me, in the MMA, I've never seen anybody with his skill. It seems like he can be beat by anybody. I don't know.
I don't know. He's only 29-0. I don't know. Maybe he might be premature to give him that.
Yeah, I don't know. I think Conor McGregor is. I've never met the man, but I get a kick out of his confidence. I get a kick out of his and then beyond all that, whether or not he lost, to Khabib, and he came in and he got it done with Cowboy. He came in and he gets it done. He's a master. And I really followed his fighting style and the quickness of him and his energy for cash, because that's who the character was. I'm not going to be able to play a heavyweight or a real middleweight champion. I just don't have that size. So, but I am the same size as some of those guys like Connor and Mayweather and these lightweight, the Sugar Ray Leonards that I grew up watching, and the, and the, De La Hoyas. These guys weren't huge dudes,
No, they weren't.
and they had such skill and their feet and their hands and their movements. And, you throw then the MMA component on there and you learn some arm bars and some suplex, fucking crazy, mechanical moves on the floor, and you kind of are in the same world. It does go together. You can't be an MMA fighter and not know how to throw a punch, which comes from really boxing, right? So it's I think I've been really fortunate to have so much of that experience before I landed into this, where I really needed to embrace the sport of MMA. I was able to dabble, from the Power of One, which was a strong boxing film, to this, to that, to this, bring it into a prison movie, come into here to where we are now, where physically and age-wise, it was kind of the perfect part for me. I couldn't have done it. I couldn't have done it 5-10 years ago. No way. I could have played a younger fighter, but it wouldn't have been you wanted this guy to be seasoned for this character to work. You wanted this guy to be almost on his last legs, as far as his age. Although Cash is so crazy, he'd probably be fighting at 50 or 55. I mean, this guy's nuts,
Pull a Randy Couture. I agree. I wouldn't be surprised to see Cash Boykins on the senior tour. Well, we're almost out of time here. I'd like to thank you so much, Stephen, for being here today and sharing your thoughts on the movie Embattled. Please, Crossfire Nation, Countdown Nation, check it out. It releases November the 20th to select theaters and video on demand. I'm definitely going to buy it and hold it close. We hope to have you on again soon, Stephen, maybe for your next film or project. It would be amazing.
Yeah, man. Thank you so much for having me. And thank you. No, appreciate it.
Thank you. Pleasure, sir. I'm a big fan of yours. So this is really a great pleasure to have you on.
Well, this is the 47 Club. We're the 47 Club.
I'll come back anytime. I'll come
back. Right
on,
man. Right on.
All right. Well, here we go. Again, thank you so much. And a friendly reminder to everyone watching that this show, TKO Countdown, can be heard on the BarnBurner Radio Network and all of its 122 platforms. Please check out barnburner.ca for all the news that's late and great in the world of professional sports. BarnBurner, watch it, hear it, read it, live it, download it, and we will see you next week with another amazing episode. Take care, folks.
Thank you, Stephen.
See you guys. Thank you.
Thank you.
See you.